Bienvenue, benvenuti, and welcome to Expatriotical, the podcast for expats, travelers, and other adventurous souls. I'm Chandra, and after living as an expat with my husband and 4 children in 2 different countries for almost 6 years, I've learned the arts of pivoting during pitfalls, traveling tastefully for less, and soaking in amazing new cultures without losing your own. Join me as we dive into the joys and challenges of travel and the expat life in every episode. Hey guys, so today we have our second interview ever, and this one is a true international one coming at you live. Well, not really because this is pre-recorded, but coming to us from New Jersey in the USA. My guest today has had a unique position as an expat. He was the CIP completely irreplaceable partner, which is our replacement term, if you remember, for the disgusting trailing spouse name, which in the past has been given to the expat whose spouse's job moves the family abroad. You can listen to episode 2, Redefining Trailing Spouse, to understand more of what that means. Anyway, our guest today is not only a dedicated dad and husband, but also a friend to many and a fellow listener to Expatriotical. I can't wait for you to hear all he has to say, so let's jump right in. Okay, good morning. So everybody, today my guest is a fellow listener. He is a dad, he is a husband, and he is coming to us live from New Jersey, and his name is Chris Buja. Good morning, Chris.
Good morning, Chandra. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Thank you for being here. And I'm really excited that you took the time and got up very early, by the way, everyone. He was up and ready, and we started at 6 o'clock in the morning his time. So very dedicated listener, I guess, if you will, and interviewee. I really appreciate it. And so if you're ready, we'll just jump right in.
I'm ready.
Okay,
let's do it.
Okay, all right. Chris, can you please tell us a little bit about yourself, where you are from originally, what is your family dynamic like, the size, etc.?
Of course. Again, my name is Chris Buja, and I'm originally from Massachusetts, born and raised there. I was the oldest of 3 brothers, and my mom and dad actually still live in the house that I grew up in. So I get to visit that place from time to time and all the memories that come with it. And after growing up there and contemplating some schools in the Northeast, I made a big switch to attend the University of Arizona out in Tucson, Arizona, which, alas, was eliminated from the tournament last night. So, oh well, better luck next year. And from there, I was in the Navy briefly, which took me to Pensacola, Florida, and Corpus Christi, Texas. And then I made my way back to Arizona and ultimately back to the East Coast to take a position as a director of religious education in New Jersey. That was around 2006. And thus began my New Jersey journey, where I have been by and large for the past 17 years, with the exception of a few years in Paris. And that certainly brought me the grand meeting with my wife, Melanie, who I met here in New Jersey, at a Starbucks, in fact. And we then had 2 boys. Ryan was born in 2013, and Kyle was born in 2015. And after some years in New Jersey, we had an opportunity to move to Paris, France, which has brought me to this interview.
That's awesome. Okay, and so we know each other because our children went to the same school together here in Paris. And so can you tell me exactly what brought you here to Paris exactly?
Yes, so the specific opportunity was through my wife, Melanie, who works for L'Oreal, has worked for many years for L'Oreal USA, and had an opportunity to take a position with L'Oreal Paris, L'Oreal France. One of her friends and coworkers had taken a similar position about a year before we did. So we had heard great things from her friend Doug, his wife Terry, and their daughter Kenzie, who they also enrolled at Marymount International School. So as we heard more about what they were going through, it became more and more appealing to us. And at the time, this was, again, I think 2019, 20, just as the COVID pandemic was really rolling through. And even despite all that going on, the opportunity to live and work in Paris, we just couldn't look back, years later and say, well, yeah, we thought about it, but we didn't do it. So we got that ball rolling and got ourselves flying out to Paris, France, the very end of December 2020, and then Melanie began her work in early 2021,
Okay.
and the adventure was underway.
All right. That's awesome. And so you arrived, December 2020 and, new country, first time living abroad. And what was your impression of Paris? Your very first thought?
Well, what certainly struck both of us was just how much it seemed to be raining all the time. And it was certainly very dark. Obviously, it was winter, but even more so than what I was accustomed to from my New England upbringing. And it seemed if it wasn't raining, it was very cold. And I thought, well, I mean, is this like Seattle? What is happening? And so that was a bit of a change. No one had kind of cued us into that the long dark winters of Paris, France, and so we had to adjust to that. But things were, I think, a bit quieter than typical for the hustle and bustle of Paris, which was kind of a nice thing for myself, my wife, having grown up in very suburban settings. So this was our first big city living. So going from much more spacious suburban dwellings, single family homes, and larger backyards to a much more confined apartment living, and the density of a big city was a bit of a change, but it was a good one. It was a good experience to have that and learn to live in tighter quarters and really get to know each other. My wife and two young boys in a nice cozy apartment.
And so in that time, were there any, now living in an apartment and with the end of COVID, did that affect you at all? Like with the being outside, were you allowed to be outside by that time? Because it was now like 2021-ish.
Yes, and certainly definitely a shift from how things were in the US to how they were in Paris. So there were still stricter curfews in effect.
Okay.
So that was an adjustment as far as being back home, somewhat more limited, ability for takeout meals. Um, One of the definite appeals was the fact that I think Paris and France, they were really doing everything they could to keep schools open. So while our boys, had like a day or two of in-person school in the fall before it went full virtual, we were really glad to have them get back into in-person school since we were in Paris, France. So that was a big help. And again, fortunately, things improved and curfews, were lifted and uh, dining was reinstated. I
Nice.
distinctly remember the first day it was technically allowed. The weather again was horrendous. It was like torrential downpour, but that did not stop us from finding our nearby a restaurant to partake of. So it again kind of allowed us to also ease into this new, big city and a new country living because things were a little bit more slowed down
Yeah.
due to those restrictions.
Yeah. Yeah. That's really cool. So, how did you, switching gears a little bit, how did your role change in the family when you all moved to Paris?
Yes, it was a change, and we knew in making the move for my wife's full-time work that I would not be working, and fortunately didn't have to work, so it allowed me to focus on being the full-time home manager. Now, my work in the U.S. Prior to leaving was on a part-time basis,
Okay.
due to allowing me to really help with the kids' school schedules, the pickup and drop off and activities. So I was just continuing in that vein of that focus. So, but it was even more so to not be working altogether. And that was an adjustment. but it did not take long before the days just filled up very quickly. It seemed no sooner had I gotten the kids to school, done a few chores, and here we are now. It's time to pick them up again. So an adjustment, but always something to do, and I certainly found even more. I would often say, well, I really should find some paid employment because then I won't have to do as much other stuff.
Yes, exactly. So basically, like your day, you didn't, yeah, you didn't necessarily find yourself bored, which is something we can talk about later. But the transition itself wasn't. It didn't take too long to adjust to. Then.
No, I don't think so. It, I mean, I think in the U.S. and in France, and even as much as things have sort of evolved and as far as the expectations of working parents, working partners, and the gender role assumptions that come with men and women around who should be working and how much. Um, so I still felt that, and I'm greatly appreciative of my wife for having that full-time job that again didn't necessitate me having to work and
Mm-hmm.
allowing me to focus on um, the kids' activities. Uh, but I don't know if even more so, or it struck me at many event or as we mentioned, the parent-teacher organizations. I would see other dads at different activities, but I was one of the few regular attendees,
Yeah.
and that just reflected the the breakout of how of who the working partners were, and who was the managing the home manager.
The home manager, yeah, exactly. So, so basically, like, just to give kudos, like, you were always, I mean, you were there, you were ready with your snacks. I remember Carson would be like, Mom, Kyle has, I mean, like, we literally would buy snacks because you always had something prepared, ready to go for your boys. Which is amazing. And you were extremely active not only in their lives and with their activities, but as a volunteer with the PTO, the Parent Teacher Organization. And is that something that you had in mind in the beginning, of like, I'm gonna just jump in and do this, or did you just see the need and fill it? How did you become active in that?
Yes, even prior to moving to Paris, I always wanted and am eager to get involved with definitely the kids' activities. And even before that, I mentioned my work as a sort of a Sunday school director. And in that realm of nonprofit organizations, I'm a real enthusiast of all organizations and what their sense of mission and purpose and how they fulfill that is. And I can only sit on the sidelines so long before I want to just roll up my sleeves and get in there and not only help make things happen, but understand the big picture of how it can be done even better and get more people involved. So um, the Marymount community, such a wonderful collection of not only the families, the staff, teachers that were such a great part of welcoming me, and part of that was uh, connecting us with a parent before we arrived, and they were very involved in the parent-teacher community. So I kind of learned and started to hear about what was happening, and as COVID receded, it allowed for more activities to resume. So slowly we were able to re-implement some of those, and more parents were able to get involved. So uh, I really I enjoyed that, and tend to end up biting off more than I can chew. But I'm still learning that lesson. But it was a real joy to get to know and work with the staff and parent community in that area.
And did you find that volunteering was a constructive place filler for working in a traditional job?
Absolutely. And we knew that this wonderful expatriation opportunity was going to last between 2 to 5 years, and that we'd be then returning to the U.S. And I would one day have to resume work, paid employment. So I wanted to utilize that time in a unpaid role to bolster my volunteer experiences, develop new skills, And it was a real point of emphasis through the language learning school I participated in, absolutely French, that even as an expat partner, the not being the non-working spouse of the working expat is a great opportunity to bolster that resume set and just take advantage of the experiences, for personal improvement, and would definitely be applicable in any future professional role. So, uh, and I certainly found many to do through the parent-teacher organization. The boys participated in a Cub Scout pack, so they enjoyed that, and I helped there where I could, and just ample opportunities to, you know, lend a hand and add some great bullet points to the curriculum vitae.
Yeah, okay, that's I love that you just said that. That kind of to circle back there a little bit. I think it's fantastic that Absolutely French said, "Hey, this is not a lost opportunity for you either. You are going to have plenty of experiences that will, like you said, add some bullet points to your CV, to your resume." And did you find that you were able to do that as you beefed your resume back up? And I mean, you're working again now. Would you say that you found, yeah, there are some things I can definitely add here that show, value, growth, learning, and that sort of thing?
It certainly did, and you know, definitely the experience of moving and living abroad and the challenges that come with it. Um, being, the to become more flexible and to navigate the many layers of administration and bureaucracy and just getting settled. Um, Again, also very fortunate that L'Oreal, being such a large company, can assist in all of that, but it still takes someone and the partners in tandem to make it all happen and come to fruition. So um, it really just absolutely added to that skill set and to feel more comfortable and confident in a new situation where I don't know the language and I'm rapidly trying to learn it. So I can really can't say enough wonderful things about that absolutely French school and how they really equipped and empowered myself and all the participants to not only learn French but to find those ways to continue our passions outside of paid employment and built a great community to support each other, which included putting on like job fairs for those expat partners that were seeking employment.
Really?
So yeah, again, it was really much more than just simply learning a language. Melanie was somewhat would always say, you know, Chris got the better of the language learning opportunities. She also had so many hours of sort of virtual language learning, but mine included, small group in-person language learning, taking little field trips throughout the city, going to the markets to prepare traditional French cuisine, and then even after the allocated hours were completed, I still got to participate with the community and find ways to stay connected with it.
That's fantastic. Like I personally, I'm going to have to dig into this more. That's really wonderful because a lot of us receive a lot of people that come with a company, with a corporation, may receive some language learning, but a lot of times it's offered like only online, and the in-person help I would think and the small group community of going to market together, learning how to say things, I would think that's really invaluable. So another kind of continuing on in the conversation, another activity that came with you to France and kept you busy with training and etc. That was very enjoyable for you and you could devote yourself to was, can you share that with us?
Absolutely, yes. My passion for running marathons, especially, I continued that in our time in Paris, and again, having grown up in Massachusetts, the appeal of the Boston Marathon has been on a goal of mine to run a marathon that would qualify me to participate in the Boston Marathon. I'm still pursuing that goal, but I got to make some great progress on that while in Paris. And it's another example where I got to make new connections that a mutual friend, his older sister knew someone who was living in Paris and was part of a running community.
Okay.
So I became aware of that community, and it was still meeting even in the midst of COVID. They were, kind of maintaining some degree of social distancing while running, but obviously it's a great exercise to do outside. So I definitely had the opportunity and had the flexibility to keep up with my running and to even run the Paris half marathon and then the Paris full marathon not only once but twice. And it was that the second time that I was not only running it for myself but as part of a marathon team representing the absolutely French language learning school, L'équipe absolutely French. So again, it was just a great way that it involved not only myself, some other students from the school, some runners from the running club, and even someone I had through a connection with a running club in New Jersey who has run many marathons and has done many overseas. So it was a great coming together of a diverse group that I was so excited to be a part of, and you know help promote the school and promote running and continue my passion and share that with others.
Fantastic. And so I think it's fair to say, and we kind of touched on this earlier. I mean, you probably didn't get very bored in general. Like, it sounds like there were enough things that you weren't just sitting on the couch watching TV like all the time.
Very true. I would sometimes watch TV and sometimes make a point to watch some of the French language TV and Weather Channel to try to get more of that auditory learning in effect. But I can't think of any time that I was bored, or if I was, I had only myself to blame. Perhaps there may have been times where I thought, I have to do this again. I have to go to the grocery store again.
Yeah.
I guess that was an adjustment because not having a vehicle and not having the supersized fridges and freezers I was accustomed to in the U.S., regular trips to the grocery and the market was necessary. But again, always something to do and something else. I mean, Paris, especially
Yeah.
among all the famous and well-known sites, but even so much more that I would try to make a point to carve out time to see those things and some of the lesser known visits and just to take in the beautiful parks. And definitely with two boys, we were always exploring one park after another. So grateful that there are so many to choose from. But absolutely, days were filled and went by just like that.
That's fantastic. And so, what would you say to people? And I'm gonna be direct and say, especially men who find themselves in a similar position with this opportunity to live abroad, but they may have to stop working. I know for myself in Italy, at first I thought I couldn't work, and that was a whole other story, and found out later, no, the visa allows it. Here, I literally every year have to sign a paper saying I will not work. And so what would you say to them, or people that are currently find themselves in that situation already? Do you have any advice for those people?
Yes, and in speaking with many people and sharing our story of the experience, I would absolutely recommend that anyone who has an opportunity to live abroad outside the place they grew up to take it. Now, certainly Paris as the location and having a wonderful, loving partner that is working full time and then not being the one who's doing the full time work. That's really appealing too. It may not be everyone's circumstances, but it's such a tremendous experience that can't, I don't know how you can put a price on it. And, we know we wanted that for ourselves, for our children to have just a very diverse experience and the community of Marymount of people, locals from France, but from abroad, Italy and Brazil and Korea. It's just, oh my gosh, the unlikes of which, they will not have in any school in New Jersey. So Well, yes, taking a break from full-time work, part-time work to be not in paid employment is an adjustment, but as I mentioned, there's just so many ways to get involved, to continue developing one's skill set, um, learning a new language, and finding ways to connect, with those types of communities that are more familiar, but also stretching oneself uh, co- to being part of those more diverse communities, stepping outside my comfort zone, and and that was really where the growth and the learning was most pronounced.
That's fantastic. Yeah, stepping out. There's a lot of stepping outside your comfort zone that I think that we have to do as expats when you're, just learning a new culture and all that sort of thing. So, tell us, what was your favorite thing about being an expat?
So what comes right to mind is, as someone, I always love learning new things and having the opportunity to read something new, do something new. Um, it it really is something I'm passionate about. So certainly to live abroad as an expat, there's so many new things to learn, and it just provided one opportunity after another to take on new challenges. Obviously, learning a new language um, is important, and I wanted to get myself, fairly comfortable and passable in my French skills. So I think even as it became real that we were going to be making the move, I downloaded my Duolingo application
There you go.
and started that, and uh, I'm up to like a 1,200 something day streak, and I think that wasn't even the full extent of my time there. And coming from having learned Spanish many years ago, but then getting out of practice with it, and it sort of falling to the wayside, I didn't want that to happen with French. And I was excited, for our children to be learning a second language much younger than Melanie or I did. So definitely a concrete example of learning. And then just to experience so many new sights, sounds. The food was just tremendous, not only in Paris, but all the places we got to visit. So no shortage of new experiences and places to see that just can't be matched, and is a great feature of being an expat.
That's wonderful. And so, what would you say has been your most memorable experience of something you did, place you went, food you tried?
This is still one of the toughest questions, and it's probably the most predictable question that everyone will ask.
Yeah.
And it's still like, oh man, how do I pick the place? Um, and we went to so many, to rattle them off or try to. All of them were wonderful for different reasons. But one of the experiences that stands out and is representative of all of those was during the course of that second marathon running, which I've run a few marathons. It was my that was my seventh marathon, and so Melanie has been a great supporter of my marathon running, and the boys as well, from time to time coming out to cheer me on. But you know, Ryan and Kyle, who are 11 and 8 now, and were a few years younger that during this time, it can be a bit much for the parent that has to just be watching on the sidelines with the two kids for a couple hours just to
Yeah.
see, oh, there goes Dee Dee. Oh, we missed him. Did he pass? Um, so I wasn't sure if they were going to come out to support me, but the morning of the race, I had some extra water and gels that I put a note on saying, if you do come out, if you could be around this location, it would be much appreciated. I'll be ready for some more water, 17 miles into the 26-mile race. And uh, as you are aware, my race didn't go quite as planned after the 5 kilometer mark, and I stumbled. Not, no, it was more than a stumble. It was a hard pancake sprawl. I hit the ground due to running into what was a rubber stanchion. I did recover, but I think it took its toll on me as the race progressed. So I was struggling, I was bloodied and scraped, and I was so grateful to then see, my beautiful boys and wife coming around the corner of mile 18 or 19, outstretched hands with water and much needed replenishment. So I'm so grateful that I was doing that momentous marathon, Paris, for the second time, and was doing that with my wife and kids there, and that all of these experiences were done as a family. And even though my wife and I would often remark, "Oh my gosh, what a great, trip to Amsterdam and Mallorca," it would it be even, let's do it again without the kids. Next time, let's do that. And there is something to be
Oh,
said for that.
yes.
But the photos we've accumulated, the memories we've accumulated as a family, that we will appreciate more and more. The kids especially will just really come to see what a great experience that was. So it's a different experience to do an expat as a single person, partnered but without kids, and partnered with children. So I think they all have their pros and cons, but really exciting to for the kids who have done that in their formative years, and that we got to build these memories as a family.
Yeah, they're priceless. They really, really are priceless memories, I think. And like you said, the photos, and a lot of times you wonder if will remember things, but thank God we have photos and they look back. I know my kids will sometimes break out the photo books on the couch and they'll say, "Oh, I remember this." And I'll say, "Isaiah, you were like a year and a half. There's no way you remember it, but at least you have those photos to know you were there and you saw that or you did that thing." So it's really, really amazing. And okay, so another thing to ask about is I like to have for guests, or I guess it's more of a new tradition, is do you have like an inspirational quote or something like that? Since normally I like to end with an inspirational quote, what is something that stands out? I kind of put you on the spot, but that stands out to you of a thought or reflection or one last positive thing to leave us with today?
Okay. Well, um, being such a movie enthusiast, and this particular reference has always stood out for me for many scenarios. And being a big fan of the Batman movies, and especially the more recent Christopher Nolan trilogy, in the movie The Dark Knight Rises, where Bruce Wayne, who is Batman, spoiler if anyone's not aware, has been captured and is struggling to escape this prison at the very bottom of a very deep pit. And as he tries multiple times to climb out, but keeps falling and is only saved by a kind of a chintzy uh, belaying rope, um, to finally escape, he has to make this perilous climb without that safety rope attached about him. So sorry if I just spoiled it for anybody. He finally gets out and saves the day, but he has to make the climb without the rope. So I've used that reference in other sort of metaphors, and I think the expat experience, especially, it's the encouragement for whoever you are in a situation to consider making a life abroad, is whatever that rope, that safety rope is for you. Um, take that rope off and make the climb. Is it, stepping outside your comfort zone? We had so many familiar communities to connect with in Paris, and having that sense of other Americans and English speakers was helpful and comforting. But it was stepping outside those familiar spaces where real growth and opportunity happened. I got to meet people that I never would have met because I had enough French down that I could carry on a basic conversation. So uh, it's a lot of change and a lot of fear that comes with making such a big switch. But I'm glad that we took that chance, embraced the fear, and overcame it to have such a tremendous experience for what was only 2.5 years, but boy, did we fill it up as much as we could. And So again, take off that rope and make the climb, whatever that means for you.
That's fantastic. I love that. And just to add that there's going to be fear, but it's worth it. It's worth pushing through it to get to all these amazing experiences. Well, Chris, Buja, thank you so much for taking the time, waking up really early, by the way, to sit with me and have this conversation, for all of us to glean some wisdom, hear your experiences, and hopefully encourage some people that are like, ooh, I'd really like to do this, but I'm a little bit nervous, that sort of thing. I think this specific interview will be very encouraging to those people that might be sitting on the fence to know, like, this is a great experience for everybody that has the ability to be able to step out there and live abroad a little bit. Thank you so much, Chris.
You're welcome. I'm so happy to have done this. Thank you for asking. Merci beaucoup.
De rien.
Au revoir. Bonne journée.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
I don't know about you guys, but I absolutely love the dynamic that Chris brought to Expatriotical today. A former soldier in the United States Navy, a marathon runner, a dad, husband, and an active volunteer. He really shows that all types of people can thrive at being an expat and filling the role of CIP, completely irreplaceable partner, or as Chris said, home manager. I hope that the perspective and wisdom he shared is encouraging to everyone listening, especially those who don't know if they are ready to take on that sort of role. Now to get to today's Shan Select. Though I have not personally vetted them, because I know Chris and his fastidiousness and trust that after 150 hours of language learning with them, he isn't messing around when he says they are amazing. Absolutely French is this episode's Shan Select. Having experienced lessons online here in Paris and also in person in Italy, I cannot emphasize enough how much in-person learning boosts your experience. Coupled with the group session environment and small group outings that they offer, I can't imagine the kind of progress I could have had if I would have plugged in there. Even reading the reviews on their website of people who had tried to learn French in Paris for 3 years without success and then made the switch and made great progress with Absolutely French lets me know that their method works and that there may still be hope for me yet. Who knows? I will include the link to their website in the show notes for this episode. Thanks again to my guest, Chris Buja, and thanks to you for listening. Before I wrap things up, I wanted to share that I am hoping to do a new style of episode in the coming weeks, and I need your help to do so. I would love to do an Expat Answers episode where I answer any questions that have come to mind to you while you have listened these past weeks. Anything from what's your favorite food in France? Hint, you probably can't guess this one, to what has been one of the most surprising things you've encountered while living in Paris? Or which do you prefer, Italy or France? A question I get all the time, but which is very difficult to answer. Write in with your question by DMing me, which honestly, I am not sure, but I believe means to direct message me on Instagram. The handle is @Expatriotical. And while you're there, if you haven't already, please follow me. That's it from me today. So excited to meet you back here next week. But until then, this is Chandra reminding you to live and travel in the know with Expatriotical.